Um, Hi, I wanted to ask, with the trailer, we saw all of these fantastic homages to genre films that have come before and also a lot of Matthew Vaughn's own flavor in the direction. So what was it like balancing new ideas and new styles and original stuff with, referencing things like Bond and the Avengers and stuff that's come before? Thank you.
Sorry, I've never done this before.
Who do you expect to have the answer to that question?
So the flashes were kind of sending me a little bit loopy. So I completely missed the question, actually.
I would just say
Mark. I think Mark should answer that.
the answer simply is it was so easy, honestly. It was great. I didn't have to direct it, of course, it's Matthew Vaughn who directed it. But luckily he's a genius, so for him this was no problem at all. He's a big fan of all this stuff growing up, and like all of us here probably, he's into this eclectic pop culture, and like Quentin Tarantino, just picks the stuff that he loves and puts it all in one movie.
One of the things that makes you want to be an actor, speaking only for myself, there's something infantile about it. You're suspending disbelief, pretending, entering into the story world. And if you're going to do the kind of movies that show a harsh mirror to reality or something, that probably wasn't what you were in it for when you were little. But this is like stepping into the shoes of the people that were your heroes growing up. So in some ways, I think, I feel that was in mind when it was being created. It was stuff we loved when we were kids, we fell in love with cinema.
There's something quite nice about seeing a spy movie that's fun again as well, isn't there? Like, the last 15 years or so, is that when I was a kid I used to watch James Bond and want to be him when I grew up, and now you go and see James Bond and he's crying in the shower. I think it'd be nice to see a spy movie you don't want to kill yourself after, I think it's good that the most.
Hi, over here. Well, before I begin and ask my question for Mr. Miller, I'd just like to say to Mr. Dick Gibbons, Watchmen is the best thing I've ever read in my entire life. It changed my life. Thank you so much for doing that. Whenever you see Alex, please tell him that he changed my life. Thank you very much.
I will do, thank you.
Now, for Mr. Miller, I've read most of your stuff, if not all of it. And I've... most of it.
There's plenty downstairs if anyone would like to buy something.
So here's the thing, I see that you take things that we all know.
Yeah.
And understand, and you switched it up, and you show us in a different light, sometimes a very dark light, very almost grotesque or gory light. Now with Secret Service, I read it, I thought it was hilarious, I got the black humor. What was your inspiration for it? What were you trying to do, either parody or homage?
Well, it's funny, you always think you're very original and you realise everything you do is a collection of sort of random memories from your childhood, and I think it probably applies to all of us, And for me, it was the Spy Who Loved Me probably was a big thing. That's when I first wanted to be James Bond, And but there's anything I do, Kick-Ass. When I created Kick-Ass, it was basically me wanting to be Spider-Man as a child. That was the version of it. My daughter asked me to create a superhero for her, and I created Hit Girl. So which she still isn't allowed to read. So everything is just something that you loved when you were a kid, really, that comes out. And Matthew and I are the same age, and this all came from a pub chat that we had on the set of Kick-Ass. He was just, exhausted sitting in the bar. We were talking about how we missed the old school spy movies, and it just grew organically from there back in 2008, I think.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Jackson, we didn't see the film yet, but you have been doing a lot of action films in your career. And I can wonder, you can be like a mentor for Mr. Colin. So can you talk a little bit about that? You had a chance to talk about it, and you learned something about Mr. Jackson, Colin?
By the time I showed up, they'd already been shooting for a while. I actually hadn't seen what was going on, and Matthew took me into an office and showed me this really great scene, showed me the church scene. And I was sitting there slack-jawed. I said, that's Colin Firth. So he didn't need any help from me. The one thing that's really great, like you said, we've been preparing for this all our lives. I tell people this a lot, that I sit at home and I read scripts, and I see the movies that I saw when I was a kid. I spent my whole day in the movie theater watching, and I say to myself, okay, here's that opportunity I've been waiting for to be inside that movie I spent all day watching, and I'll choose that movie because That's part of the job. The job is supposed to be fun. And I've been preparing to do this for a long time. I was an only child. I stood in the mirror and did a lot of this stuff. I fought a whole bunch of things in my room that nobody saw but me. And I think, Colin learned how to channel those things. And we all have that inside of us as actors that really enjoy acting, that remember what it meant to lose yourself in that fantasy world when you were a kid, or you and your friends dressed up and went outside to play Cowboys and Indians or war, or Vikings or whatever we played with old ladies. Put those sticks down before you put somebody's ear. So we did that stuff, and now I get to do it as an adult on a grand scale. I get to have a real gun in my hand and shoot fake bullets, but when I shoot somebody, unlike my friends who always yell, "You missed me," the chest explodes. I love that. So, you don't have to be taught to do that. You have to learn to do the technical things like, the choreography of the fights and all those other things. But all that other stuff is stuff we've been waiting to do all our lives, especially boys.
Well, that's a perfect answer. Everything Sam just said goes for me as well. All I would say is that, I fantasize about being in those kind of films. I rarely ever have. And then when Sam Jackson shows up on the set, I think, I'm in the real thing. It's a sign that I made it into those movies I want to see.
My question is for Colin. Hello. Colin, you've given us so many iconic roles over the years, from Mr. Darcy to King George VI. And now you're fulfilling every Colin Firth fantasy of playing a secret British agent. So what was it like for you to finally get to kick some arse? Can they say that?
Yes, with an R, it's okay. It was great fun. I mean, I think in some ways, I think you've been hearing the answer to that. It referenced something that is to do with the things we really, really enjoy. This isn't, this isn't supposed to be, rewriting history, or it's not supposed to achieve world peace, or anything. It's to just, we enjoy it, we want you to enjoy it. And in terms of what was different, I've never had to do anything quite this physical, really, unless you include pulling Hugh Grant's hair. That was probably what first hinted at me as a killing machine. The training was extraordinarily intense and unfamiliar to me, but it was long and incredibly gratifying by the end. I wished I'd done more of it, but it was a good 6 months of daily, 3 hours a day, with this extraordinary team that we were talking about, basically the best in the world: gymnasts, Thai boxers, martial artists of all kinds, special forces guys. So it was...
Some killers who still wanted that we can't do.
This clip you're going to see in Hall H this afternoon of Colin fighting, I've watched about 200 times. It's absolutely amazing. And I can't wait to see what Hugh Grant is like when he watches it. He's going to be shitting himself. Bridget Jones through it.
It's a good thought.
I just want to say to all of you, from Kick-Ass to Watchmen, Pulp Fiction, Time to Kill, to Annie McPhee, which my 3-year-old loves. So thank you so much for that. My question to you, Mr. Firth, is, and it kind of dovetails on what she was saying, is that what drew you to this? What made you say, I've done kind of these films, I want to do something in this area?
Well, again, part of the reasons you've heard, I enjoyed this kind of thing, growing up in the 60s, and I think to a very large extent, in terms of style, and the character of the spy movie that I fell in love with has its roots in the 60s. It's Man from U.N.C.L.E., it's the Harry Palmer films, it's John Steed's Avengers, those early Bond films. It's the guy in the suit who seems slick and cool and capable, but very, very contained. But you cross him at your peril. He'll get you with the umbrella or a slick movie or a gadget or something. And so it was all that. But it took Matthew Vaughn to invite me. And, I've been here waiting for the opera on Bond for long enough. But it was Matthew Vaughan who decided that it was a good combination, because he likes to take your presumptions about people and then flip them on their head. And so he came to me and said, well, I think you're the last person on earth anybody would expect to kick anyone's ass. And I think it'll be a big surprise, but I would like you to really do it. So are you up for it? And this is about a year before we went ahead. Well, I had the comics. He hadn't finished writing the script, so that was enough to go on. I loved it. I couldn't put them down. But are you prepared to take the pain of going through this training process? You're going to hate me by the end of it, but I'm asking you now, just because it's going to take this long to get you there. And so it was the challenge. You know, if I'm the last person you expect to be able to do all that stuff, he wanted me to really do it. You have to be able to really sell it, not just cut to a stunt man. You can do that, so you know, you can have it look like me and it not be me. He wanted it to, you know, to be utterly convincingly me, and therefore me. Thank you. Thank you.
A question from younger actors. How did you prepare for your roles? Did you read the comics or prepare physically at all?
Yeah, I mean, I got off quite lightly on the training. Taron was definitely putting it through his paces. I think I had one session where I had to do a few forward rolls, and that was it. Yeah, no, I didn't read the comics before I auditioned, and I kind of wanted to stick to what Matthew had written, and you know, Roxy's terribly featured, you know, unlike Eggsy in the comics. So I went off that and what Matthew said, and but yeah, then obviously read the comics whilst we were doing filming, just to kind of get the tone of the piece really. And I think even though film isn't, you know, an exact representation of the comic, it's tonally very similar, and yeah, it was really useful reading it.
In terms of preparation for me, I'm. Hello? Hello?
Oh my gosh.
Is this yours?
No, it's not mine, I swear. Actually, maybe it's yours.
No, this is the same. What are you looking for? What are you looking for? Actually, you know, whoever you're calling from the middle of the press conference, they had the phone on their desk. Fuck that up.
Say what again?
All right. Awesome. I don't know if the tape recorder's still on, though. Come on, don't be ashamed, Clint. You're fine. That was Alger. Whoever knows Alger. Wow. Better check and see if your recorder's on. I can't help it.
Okay. I just want to ask, for all the actors, describe your characters, describe their motivation in one sentence, if you can.
So I play Eggsy, who is a young man from the wrong side of the tracks who has great potential. That's one sentence, man. That was one sentence.
Valentine, I want to say the word.
Yeah, Harry, the Henry Higgins of the spy world.
Roxy, in it to win it.
Gazelle, backing up Valentine.
Dave Gibbons, I want to sell comics.
Well, I get 50% of his gets.
Hi, this is a question and a comment. My comment is this as fit as we're going to see you, Christopher?
Yeah. It's going to deteriorate very fast.
That's what I thought. And for the young cast, you notice we're differentiating between the young cast and the mature cast. What was it like to work with two titans in the theater and everything?
It was absolutely amazing, and I think it was such an honor for all three of us to get to work with them, and could not believe it was happening to us, really, to be honest. And then they're all really, truly generous, and they were absolutely amazing with us on set. It was a great experience.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't slightly intimidated, but, you know, we were all in it together and we all, you know, wanted to make the film as good as possible and have as much fun doing it, and doing it with titans such as these has been an absolute honour. I'm very lucky.
I think the two gentlemen sat next to me, I think it's probably fair to say, are the quintessential living English and American movie stars, and for me, obviously, having to getting to do scenes with both of them was, I mean, wild, not only wildly different, but also completely wonderful in different ways. And it's something I'll remember forever.
Thank you. That's all we have time.